Hey, what's up everybody, Rich Gaming Guy here. Today in this video, we're going to take a closer look at the Sinden Light Gun with Recoil. I've done some Sinden videos in the past, but recently got the Recoil version. I wanted to test this out. I personally wanted to have that Time Crisis 2 sort of experience where you had that gun in your hand that had that recoil. Now the Time Crisis 1 obviously had the slide as well that was active. This does not, however, it does give you great feedback. So I want to take you guys on a tour here. We're going to jump in and take a closer look at the gun itself, how it performs in the different modes. I'll show you up close and personal on the gun, what the feedback is like, what the sound is like on it, and then we're going to jump into some games. We're going to go into a wider range of games today though. I'm not going to just do one or two. I'm going to try to do a couple games from a couple different collections so you can see how it performs with the different types of games from different eras in retro gaming. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and from that you'll be able to gauge whether or not this is worth your time and money or not. So let's dive into it. Alright, so here we have our Sinden Light Gun with Recoil. Now if you have any experience with the Sinden Light Gun that is non-recoil, externally these guns are identical. You're going to have the same functions and features externally, so two buttons on the left hand side plus the D-pad. D-pad left here is what we would use to calibrate this. I'll flip it over so you can see the other side. Just the two buttons over here, that's all we have. We have some little designs here, but none of these are actual functions. They're purely just for appearance. We have the orange tip at the end, clearly for safety. That does come off if you just kind of wiggle it. You can pop it right off. This actually separates so you can get it over there. Just line this up with the sight up here in the front. But I definitely recommend leaving this on, especially if you're ever going to take this outside. Not that you really would be using it outside, but it does very much look like a firearm if you weren't looking at the cable attached here. So just be careful if you do take this outside with or without this orange tip on there. You don't want to be mistaken for waving an actual firearm around. In addition to those buttons, we have the pump action here. This can be used to reload in most titles. Some games you're going to enjoy that. Some games you're not going to like that feel. It just depends on the title and how you're used to playing that title. I kind of go back and forth between shooting off screen with light gun games and actually using this. This action on here is great. It just has great feedback from it. You can see if we just let it go, it automatically goes right back into place. So you don't have to like physically move it back and forward again. You can just kind of pull it back and let it go for those quick reload situations, but really a great experience there. So I'm going to I have this plugged in currently to my PC inside of Batocera version 35. That's the latest version of Batocera at the time of this video, or latest stable official version anyways. I know there's beta for 36 as of right now, but I'm going to actually switch over to the recoil option here. And right now I have it on gun. That is the recoil option where if you pull this trigger, it's going to enable that recoil function once for every time that you pull the trigger. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this a couple times. And you can see how it just sort of jumps there because it does have some actual movement to it. Now if I hold this down, it's going to just recoil once and then it'll start to kind of click like in a machine gun mode after a few seconds. So I'm just going to hold this down now. So it's not actually going to be a great experience there. If you're going to be playing games like Alien 3 The Gun, you want to actually switch over the setting. This is great for like House of the Dead, your more classic light gun games, not your shooters that are like Terminator 2 Judgment Day or Revolution X, the Aerosmith light gun game, where you're pretty much just laying on that trigger quite a bit. This is going to be more of the games where you're shooting at specific targets, reloading, and whatnot. So I'm going to switch it over to the machine gun setting now. So I'm just going to go into recoil, switch it over to machine gun, back out so it saves that setting. This is going to be the setting you want to use for like Alien 3 The Gun, Revolution X, or Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So if I hold down the trigger now, you can see that we get that machine gun effect. Now, you do want to let off of this every now and then, and most of the titles are actually going to recommend that you do that. If we take a look at Alien 3 The Gun, for example, you have a power meter. The longer you hold the trigger, the less power you have. And that's going to be the case for the light gun itself too. You're going to notice that the power actually starts to trail off the longer that we hold this. So I'm going to hold this down for a few seconds here. Notice how it's really noticeable in the beginning and then it starts to just trail off. You can definitely hear and feel how the power starts to die down the longer you hold this. So it definitely stays consistent for the most part, but it definitely starts off a lot bolder than it ends up. So again, I'd say after about 2 to 3 seconds, it starts to die down, but then it stays pretty consistent. So just remember that, and you're going to want to let go of this every now and then just to, you know, restore the power to the actual Sinden Light Gun. So that now is the machine gun setting here. We're going to switch it up once again, and we're going to go into the other two options. So now we have quiet gun mode. So this is going to be that one pull on the trigger, enabling one recoil on the actual gun there. So now I'll actually pull the trigger on quiet gun. So that's a great option where it still gives you the vibration on the gun itself, still gives you the sound, but it's much quieter. So if you're playing late at night and you have kids like I do, or you have neighbors that you don't want to get annoyed with you because the regular setting is pretty loud. It's not, I don't think it's terrible, but it's definitely enough that it would wake somebody in their same room as you, or, you know, maybe even in the next room over. So that was the quiet gun mode. We're going to go in one more time now, and we're going to go into quiet machine gun. So this is going to be just the quieter version of machine gun. So we're going to be holding down that trigger now. Here we go. And I don't notice any sort of like trailing off with the power in quiet mode. It seems pretty consistent across the board. Really nice there. And it's definitely significantly quieter than the regular machine gun mode. So that is all the functions, features, and exactly how this performs up close and personal. So now let's jump into some games. I'll show you guys how it looks as I'm playing it, how it sounds as I'm playing it. And I'm going to keep this between the regular settings. So I'm going to go between gun for the games where I'm not using that machine gun in game. And then games like Alien 3 The Gun, I'm going to use the machine gun setting here, just so you know before we jump into those titles.
Please be safe, G. How could anyone do this?
Alright guys, so we took a closer look at the Sinden Light Gun with recoil. We took a look at all of the functions and features on here. We took a look at what the experience is like both up close as well as in games. And I have to say I'm a huge fan of the recoil option here on the Sinden Light Gun. It just kicks up the experience so many notches. It immerses you in the game. You have that feedback in your hand. You have the recoil. You just really get into it. I've been chasing that Time Crisis experience where you had the guns on the original arcade cabinets that had recoil. They even had the slide that moved every time you fired the light gun. I've been trying to get that experience for years now. This definitely scratches that itch. We don't have the slide action on here, but we definitely have the recoil. It feels great. It's just an awesome experience. I didn't experience any issues other than the fact that it does weigh quite a bit more than the non-recoil version. Now, if you're coming into Sinden for the first time and this is what you go with, you don't know how light the other version is, so you're probably not even going to think about it. I came in off of the non-recoil version. I played that for about 6 to 8 weeks or so before I even got this. So that's what I was used to. So I'm just conditioned to having that lighter option in my hands. So I feel the weight a little bit more than the average person probably would, just because I have that side-by-side comparison sort of situation there. But it's awesome to have this. I really think it's a home run. Highly recommend it. And it's just the most true option out there that lines up with that early Time Crisis sort of experience that I think so many of us find iconic about light gun games. I mean, when I think about a light gun game, that is just the first thing that pops into my mind is Time Crisis at the arcade back in the mid-90s. The weight on this is probably going to slow you down just a little bit on some of those intense long games, something like House of the Dead 2, where you don't really have any breaks and it's just constant shooting from start to finish. You're going to get a little bit tired, but in all honesty, I've gotten tired playing that game just using a Wii remote, and that's significantly lighter than any of the light gun options out there. So you're going to get tired either way if you're playing intensely. So highly recommend this Sinden Light Gun with recoil. I'll put a link in the description of this video if you want to get more information from Sinden directly. But that's going to do it for today. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button on the video. It's a huge help to me here on YouTube. And of course, hit that subscribe button to stay in the loop for all future videos here on the Retro Gaming Guy YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.